Flag for fighting.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome everybody. All right, a few things on the list. Being able to start with light code enforcement. We got chief here for that, right?
We do have Chief here, yeah. So I asked Chief to come just in case you guys had questions. Maddie is on vacation week this week, so she couldn't be here, but if you guys had questions specifically about the police helping her with citations or anything like that, or any of their processes when it comes to kind of Maddie's processes, I can help with that too. But this is something since I've started with the village, it seems to come up every kind of cycle once in a while, and we talk about it. So I put it on the agenda so that for committee of the whole, so that we could have a serious discussion and maybe find some kind of resolution moving forward so that we don't have to keep revisiting it every couple months, or if we want to look at making some changes or different things, we can do that. So I'm going to kind of, I think you guys know this, but I'm gonna just go through it just to make sure we're on the same page. So right now, how we've been doing code enforcement is we are complaint driven. So we do not actively go out and seek violations when there's a complaint made by anybody, whether it's a resident, a council member, staff, anybody sees something and they notify us. We investigate it to determine if there is a violation or not, and then we go from there. So that they're provided a letter. If it's numerous violations, they'll get a fine, we'll get their yard mowed, whatever it is to get that result. Most of our code violations we're able to resolve successfully without taking any formal action. Every once in a while, we do have to issue a citation to get some action or resolution with that, but I would say a majority of that is a big one. So specifically kind of I think the topic that comes up every once in a while is how we go about code enforcement, with it being complaint driven instead of going out there and kind of proactively looking for complaints. I know in the past, my stance hasn't necessarily changed on this either, but we'll do what you guys want. But some of my concerns with going and being proactive is that we're going to start getting complaints, and if we do that, they're going to start calling you guys. And if we're going to be proactive, we want the support. We want you guys to back us up. And we can't just start going out there and then once the phone calls start coming and say, okay, just kidding, we're not going to do that. The other thing, if we're going to go proactive, is I'd like to just talk about staffing levels. Maddie wears a lot of different hats within our village. She's not just code enforcement. So she works for the PD as an administrative secretary. She works for me, treasurer, DDA, Parks and Rec, and the clerk, all as administrative. She helps with payments. She does code enforcement. She does building permits. She does planning and zoning. So she wears a lot of hats. She juggles them well. But if we want to look at being more proactive, we need to talk about that and the impacts to her position. And the police department do a really fabulous job of helping her out. So anytime there's a citation that needs to be issued, one of the officers will go with her. They'll go out and issue them together so that she has somebody with her when she's doing it, so that there's no issues. And in some cases, we have had a few that go to court, so they usually help with all of that. So it's kind of a brief, quick summary of what we do now. And I guess I just kind of wanted to open it up to you guys to see exactly what your thoughts were and see if we want to continue, if we want to make some changes. What I guess you guys' thoughts are with code enforcement.
So like second or third.
So it depends. Yeah, we always send, because we document everything when it comes to anything property related or anything violations. So that I want to say generally, yes, they get a letter. Now, for example, we have a property, they never mow their yard. We stop sending the letter, we send somebody to mow it because they got the letter initially, they refused to take care of it. We now go have it mowed and then we bill them for it. And if that bill's not paid, which it has been, then it gets assessed to the property taxes. But generally, yes, they're always get a letter that kind of educate them saying, hey, this is the ordinance. Did you know you have X amount of days to bring it into compliance? And let them resolve it. And they said, we probably get, I'm gonna say 90+% compliance with just that letter and that notification. We have a couple that we do not, but as far as saying that probably not. We do have repeat offenders, which is part of, we revised chapter 1 ordinance specifically because of our repeat offenders. So we do have a stepped civil infraction fine now. They're fined 100, 250, and then 500 for the third and so on. And it's on their property or with them for a 3-year period. Is how chapter 1 is written. And then sometimes if they get a fine of a violation, we did have a trash resident or a resident who had accumulated trash. They are not trash, right? Actually, the board with that letter. And they did go to court, so they had some fines through the court as well. In addition, but again, that's not, I don't want to say anything more.
Danielle, I know there's. Once it's been a couple of years, I'm gonna say approximately 3 years that I recall, where letters were sent out to residents stating about like housing or things like that. Is that part of this code enforcement or is that separate than that? And how does that work? I had someone ask seriously, and I said, I don't know how that works as far as is something we do annually, something we do right, or you know what I'm trying to say.
So those are treated as code, they are code violations as well. So a lot of those are property maintenance code when it comes to painting a house or taking care of property, which falls under the building inspector. But Maggie does send those letters. They do come officially from Todd because under building code, he has the authority to issue those. But they're treated the same way. They're complaint driven. So if somebody sees an issue, we investigate what the violation is. Because sometimes people bring us things that aren't actually a code violation as well. So we always look at whatever the complaint is, review to see if they find out if there is a violation and then put them on.
So there's not a necessarily okay, March of every year where we go out and we scan the village or anything like that.
Yeah, one way, right? So pretty good. So that's probably what you're asking the council, whether that's proactive or reactive, right? Or just, is that what you're asking?
Well, yeah,
Prior to my time off with the village.
this could have been prior to your time then.
We did do that, yeah, is my understanding.
Okay.
And again, we stopped that because my understanding is we went out, we wrote a ton of violations. We had
Yes.
Mostly really good compliance,
We did not write a ton of violations. We
or
sent
not
letters.
violation, letters,
Letters.
a ton of notices that there was
Yeah.
a code violation. Had mostly compliance, but council
Exactly.
started getting phone calls and then said, well, pump the brakes. We're getting a lot of complaints.
I
So, and that's kind of what keeps coming up every few years is this code driven enforcement versus proactive.
Right.
And again, it comes up every few years and I say something like, then you guys have to back us and then it kind of dies
Gotcha.
from there. So,
When we did send the letters out. Consistently, we had over 90% voluntary compliance,
which did, yeah,
meaning the issues were resolved without us having taken enforcement action.
right.
So from my view, it was very, very successful. There were some noisy crickets,
Rick away.
that, well, made some phone calls and then that council, then asked Jim for us to put the brakes on that and that, well, because that's exactly what we were doing when the spring thaw came around.
That's
We would go around, we called it curbside enforcement, which is curbside, just driving on streets,
Yeah.
looking, and it was virtually all aesthetics. We're looking for outside storage, looking for debris, cars parked in the lawn,
yes.
the stuff that tracks from the village and quite frankly from property values. So stuff that affect the quality of life, the stuff that we can visually see from the street. That's what we are addressing. Like again, over 90% voluntary compliance. And a lot of times, like, there were some houses that, especially some of the older homes, those historical homes in town. We recognize putting a roof on that house or painting that house can be very expensive. So it wasn't a, hey, you've got 10 days to paint your house. It was, hey, the house isn't in compliance with the ordinances. We realize it's major expense. Just communicate with the village. Let us know what your plan is. If your plan of attack is here. Keep us, let us know you're moving forward on this. And those few that were complicated like that, I think we had good communication with those homeowners. In trying to, move forward and address those issues, but not being draconian and saying you got 10 days to write your ticket. From a statistical standpoint, I thought it was very successful. But again, there were some people that didn't like it, and made some noise about it. And we were here. Geez, you've been here how many years?
5.
I want to say 7 or 8 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. 3 years flies by without a minute around here. So
So that was done that many years ago. And consequently, now we've been doing the complaint driven. I love that we're revisiting this, and I love the curbside assessment. I thought that was really good stuff. Really did. Things like
I don't. I think we ought to keep it complaint driven and err on that side of people driving by and saying, I don't like the looks of it. I think I don't disagree that it wasn't successful, but I just err on, for me, I err on that side of it's people's property. If they wish to live in a way that maybe I don't want to live, then that's okay. I think once it becomes, they've got trash setting out and becomes odorous, and becomes a place for rats. Now we've got a problem because now that is truly affecting the neighbor. But just because I don't like the looks of it, or I think the line needs to be a little fuzzy.
I don't hear Chief saying that. I hear him saying,
Oh, no,
I was going by the ordinance, and so if the ordinance simply says, okay, if the ordinance says X, Y,
we're
Z.
complaint driven. We're talking about being pro. I thought we were talking about, do we want to move towards the curbside where our people are doing that? Am I misunderstanding?
I don't know.
No, I think you're correct. So currently we are complaint driven enforcement. So we will enforce any valid complaint that comes in. Because again, sometimes somebody thinks it's a violation and it's not. But we're not proactively driving the community looking for violations.
That's what okay. So I am understanding.
Yes, okay.
So that's what
But
I'm
if
saying.
we're proactively looking for violations. You do
Let me-
stuff.
if I want to go back just a little bit further than that, because this whole thing got started. I walked into a committee meeting, this must have been 8 or 9 years ago. And council was doing interviews that night for a code enforcement officer. And it was first I heard about it. The people they were looking at basically were going to come in and just say that they were going to drive around, if they saw a violation, they're going to issue a ticket. And I about came out of my seat. I'm like, wait a minute. Everybody's going to assume that person will work for me. And I could just see the breakdown in community relations almost immediately. And I talked to Jim about it at that meeting and said, can you give me an opportunity to work on this? Because this is just going to destroy public relations with PD. That's when we came up with this hybrid approach. Was like, okay, look, and that council did want us to go out and look for the obvious violations, not an opinion. What's in the code, and is there a violation? Is it obvious? So I said, well, let's do that, but let's send a letter requesting compliance.
Yes.
Versus just writing a ticket without any discussion. I thought from a policing standpoint, it was a better approach. And it was a better approach to maintain relationships with our residents. And that's what we did for several years. So around the spring, we go out and drive down each street and just look for what we see. Is there an obvious light? And it wasn't like we were nitpicking, like, oh, they got chip paint. No. We're looking for cars parked on the, disabled vehicles sitting on the front lawn. We're looking for garbage piling up. the outside, storage materials. We weren't waiting for rodents to appear because in our opinion, now we're
Now
too
it's too
late.
late.
Okay, because now we have a rodent problem on top of this. So, and we had some residents that there were other issues, and obviously from our day-to-day relations, we knew who some of those people were, so we could work with them. We didn't always get 100% compliance, but we were getting there. And that was the approach. It was kind of like a tempered approach versus just going in and hiring somebody to come in and write tickets. I didn't think that was a good approach at all. So that was that council's idea to get this whole thing started. It wasn't something I was sitting in my house going, I would like to spend a few days every spring driving around and picking on people. That was not the intention at all, but I understood what council was driving at is trying to maintain the health and safety of the village. So we're trying to temper that approach. And like I said, I thought it went very well. And then council talked to Jim, we put the brakes on the whole program. I'm gonna say it was 7 years, but it's been a while since we did that. And then we went clean driven approach. So that's where we're at.
That seems to be working.
So I definitely think I think since we revised chapter 1 ordinance and identified those stepped civil infractions and those fines, I do think it's been working really well. I think what kind of tends to come up is that there's properties that maybe are not as good of repair as they would have been 7 or 8 years ago because we're complaint driven. So if nobody ever calls to complain about that house, we never do anything about it. And a majority of our complaints are tall grass, trash outside. And then we do get a good share of abandoned vehicles, and a pretty decent share of, I don't want to say just chip paint, but property maintenance. So
Not
this
abandoned, but disabled.
or disabled vehicles, but we also get some property maintenance things like missing gutters that's creating an issue or paint like
And those are
extensive.
you're saying, or those are complaints, those are some of the complaints you get.
Those are some of the complaints we get.
Okay. So, but I'm hearing you say that there are some residents that kind of fall through the cracks because no.
Correct. But when we get the complaint, like that whole process, I think works really well. I think we're getting compliance but I guess that's where those people that we're not getting complaints about. I just don't know that it's not creating a nuisance enough that somebody is saying this is a problem. Like maybe it doesn't look as pretty and I think that's what maybe, I don't want to speak for you, Ken, but I think that's what Ken was saying is like, I want my house to be on the outside clean, vinyl siding, but it used to be painted. I redid vinyl because that's what I wanted and that was important to me, but maybe Ken is good having a half painted house and not it, but so I don't know,
No, I recognize that we have to have a line. We have to have a line and we have to have a way to enforce it. Again, the goal is compliance and enforcement is just the means towards compliance. And I recognize that. I guess my thing is, I don't think that should be anyone's specific job to do that. Even people who, even with the complaints, I mean, if it's your neighbor, the neighbor has the right to complain. Not me, I'm going to a garage sale and I go down on the other side of town and I go, oh my goodness, that's gotta be a code violation. And I find out maybe it is a code violation, therefore I take it upon myself. That, to me, that's not neighborly. If it's my neighbor, to me, if it's my neighbor, I need to be walking across the yard and see, can I help you? Because obviously something isn't right here. So that's how I'm approaching it.
I can say, got a couple of things.
Sure.
For responses. We have had numerous residents coming in to talk about our village and how and how it reflects, okay, on the different houses and the homes. I mean, that's been a topic, I would say, I would call it a regular topic at this stage of the game. So I look at that way, but I'm also, so, you know, several residents coming to council to comment on that, so I think it is something that our residents do take pride in, certainly. I think the neighbor thing, be a challenge for some people, meaning this. Bill and I are neighbors, Bill goes, one's house looks like crap. It can be really difficult for Bill to come to, when your house looks like crap, number one. Number two, he comes to the office, when does this house looks like crap? Well, who said that about me? Oh, must be my neighbor. That can cause some friction. If you have, I think, the curbside assessment, that puts the ownership where it should be on people that know the ordinances, the codes, etc. And it just takes the heavy off someone else. It also, I really like the idea there, Chief, about every spring. I love the annual whole thing. I think the consistency for our village, for our residents, for the thing. Some people do fall through the crack. Nobody wants to always tip on someone. No one relishes that.
Sometimes,
You
there
know.
will be residents that, you know, we've had some that are not approachable by.
Really sure. Sure. That's another thing.
Enforcing fairly across the board too.
Sorry, so
It enforces it fairly,
Yes.
you know,
Also, anything that was structural, like we were looking at roofs, like that. All those cases got raised by Todd, our building guy, because I wasn't gonna make that determination. There was one property in particular that had a shaker style roof. And there was a particular resident who kept complaining about it. And we talked to the building inspector, he says, no, that style roof doesn't have to be painted. And although there were opinions on what it looked like, structurally it was sound and there was no enforcement action taken, so we didn't. And had to explain that back to the resident that they're actually in compliance, we may not like how it looks, but it's not compliant. So we did take a very measured, deliberate approach to each property. So
We had an answer to the resident that actually.
And I'm sure, let's just pretend. There's a mistake that we made. Is someone could be upset that, oh my gosh, Blissfield, blah, blah, blah. Someone's going to complain.
That's what they.
That's, yeah, I mean, someone's gonna complain, I can't believe, I don't think this was fair. But we know realistically, that's gonna be said regardless. And I think, Danielle, you said it well. If this is something as a council we choose to do, then we back up our people. You simply back them up and say, I have trust that they're going out there, that they know the ordinance, against the code, that this is what they've done. If you have an issue with it, the council discuss it. That's fair. That's out there.
I agree with that.
We also
got need to back.
we also thought that sending a letter versus
The letter.
a police officer going up knocking on the door. You know, a lot of people find that abrasive and embarrassing. Sending a letter is very discreet of hate, you know, the village has the permanent violation. And we encourage them to call us to discuss it. So if they didn't feel it's violation, call us, call us. So the approach was trying to address the issue as civilly as possible. And like I said, I
I
love it very
understand
well.
that people can't just do things, maybe can't afford to, maybe they don't have time, at least.
But at least we had something on file to say, hey, look, they lost their job 6 months ago, they're just trying to make housing right now. And is that necessarily our business? No, we're trying to address a violation versus just sending a thing, which is not what we want to do as a community. So if they were having hardships, and certainly those files are discreet, and if they were sharing information like that, we're gonna keep it discreet. But it helps us to know how we can help address these issues. And in fact, I remember talking to, I don't think it was Laura, it might have been Heather, but trying to see if there was money out there, any grant money that helps them out. So we were looking for holistic approaches, not not just yield violation, you can fix it somewhere else. So we were trying to help as much as we could.
And it also, if someone choose, we talked about this before, I can't remember exactly what it was, but, people want to volunteer to help our residents. I remember, somebody talking about it again now, saying, well, who can I help and what houses can I help with? I remember that. That's what it was. Yeah, thank you. Okay, talk about kind of like the neighborhood kind of thing, and okay, this house needs to be done, or this needs to be done. We got overgrown shrubs. Okay, great. Well, let's get some people there and let's knock it out.
But not everybody wants to help. And again, so we're gonna.
Exactly.
Force them to have. So
Right,
we're
right.
gonna have the ordinance, and we're gonna spend the time, the money to
Yes,
clear them up and make them more enforceable. We might, then why not enforce it across the board?
Yeah.
Enforce it fairly.
That's the other problem with doing.
I think
If I go and knock on your door for having a disabled vehicle in your yard, but I don't knock on his door, it's uneven enforcement. Well, you're the one that got the complaint. And then you're asking, well, how come I'm getting picked on? And you're not saying anything to my other neighbor who's got a car accident.
Be a dearly, I live on Cherry Street, you know what I mean? But again, you know, you think about 223, which is the harbor everybody drives through. So it does affect, it affects everybody. You know, if we have Lakeview town, people aren't busting down the doors to relocate here, bring it this to things like that. Anything we can do to help make the town, you know, cleaner, more vibrant. I think it's just gonna benefit us. So I think we should enforce them if we have them. Otherwise, why have ordinances, right? I can enforce them.
We'll do whatever you guys want us to do. So
It does get ugly though, much like Chief and Danielle alluded to, you know, as the budget we're here.
I like the complaint group, but I also like the idea of like striking. Website, right? Rated it down.
So a couple of questions. Also, I just want to make sure that you guys know, I think you brought this up, sharing about when neighbor to neighbor. We do not share, or maybe it's fun, we don't share who.
oh, I knew you guys wouldn't share, but I
And
know
we
they're gonna
purposely
ask
do
me.
that so that we don't get into a
Right,
battle between two people who are like, well, they told on me, so I'm gonna tell on them. That's not what we're here to do. We don't need to get involved in that. But I didn't want to make sure you guys know that, but, so I'm hearing some councils say at least that they like the spring thing. So when we're talking about enforcement, are you looking for like an annual spring proactive enforcement, or are you looking for a year-round active and proactive enforcement approach? Because that's gonna look different, staffing and things like that. So communities kind of do this, like Bumsey has a seasonal code enforcement officer who works part-time in the summer months. And then takes winter off because typically in the winter you don't have as much, or we're not gonna go tell somebody in the middle of winter they have to clean their house. Some communities it's year-round part-time. If you're looking at us doing a proactive spring approach, then I think Maddie and the police department can work together to do that. But if you're looking for a year-round, that's not what our employees, I don't wanna ask police and Maddie to do that. Cause
We almost have
Yeah.
like an enforcement officer.
yes, so I do wanna talk about that a little bit more, cause I guess what I'm kind of hearing is that we remain complaint driven except for maybe an annual spring. Drive around or review of the community.
That's not what that's what I'm. For that hearing.
I'm guessing, Chief, that you guys did that for a number of years, that you felt that the year once a year was sufficient overall. That would be my assumption.
That was my direction.
Understand, okay, understand, okay.
We were doing what was asked of us, and it was,
But you thought,
I thought it was very orderly, it was organized.
and things got cleaned up.
A lot of things got cleaned up, yeah.
Sure.
And then throughout the rest of the year, obviously, if somebody called and complained about something, we obviously
Right.
that too.
You're broken with a flat everywhere.
Right.
What was that like?
Call it.
The broken window theory.
Yeah, theory. We
That's-
talked about this
Yeah,
before too.
it's a common law enforcement philosophy that one of the ways to curb crime is to address blight first. So there are studies out there that suggest that if you can, the blight down.
Over shrubs.
The quality of life stays up and the crime just like that. Take down great. So if you allow one house up broken window, next thing you got 2 houses, 3 houses, and now you.
So you do all that in just 1 week?
Yeah, the drive-bys, we did that, fairly quickly, maybe 2 days. So we squeeze in the schedule and just go out and drive each street and, we weren't like stopping and, clearing up. You're just driving down the streets and if there's obvious violations sticking out at us. And the first year was, I don't remember how many, we got the record somewhere. But the second year, the numbers went down. I think we did the third year, they were down again the third year. So, but, I feel like I said, we had over 90% voluntary compliance in the year. Whether they fixed the violation or whether they were keeping with us on a corrective steps. I thought it was a lot more successful than what was initially being proposed, and that was hiring somebody part-time to go around writing tickets. And I thought that was bad policy. So I talked to Jim after the meeting, I'm like, this is bad, we can't do this thing.
But if we do stick with it, we need to, like Danielle, she said, we need to support our staff, we need to support them, because people did take that out on zoning administrator and you know what I mean?
Oh,
Some people did, so what we need to say, sorry, if we're gonna stick to it, we need to.
But at the end of the day,
do.
council asked us to do it, or they directed us to do it, we did it. Years later, they said, we don't want you to do it. Okay.
And staff is okay taking the frustrations and the concerns, but then when it comes to this level, what is frustrating or can be frustrating is we take that complaint and that beating a little bit, and then you guys are like, oh, we're sorry, let's overturn that. And then we're like, what, we just did all that for nothing. So that's what I mean by the support. Like, we will do our jobs and we'll work with the residents and communicate with them. And probably most of them won't come to you, but the couple that do, we just want you guys to say, that's our ordinance. You can come to council and ask them to change the ordinance, but we're gonna be fair to everybody and we're going to enforce it. And staff is doing better. Yeah, I mean, that's all we're asking for.
It actually provided, sometimes we police department met. People in our community that we normally wouldn't run into. So for us, I always looked at as this is a positive contact, this can be a positive contact, and the more residents that we get to know, the better. So to me, there was multiple positives that came out of it. And if a resident did have an issue, we would encourage them to call them. Let's talk about it. Let's talk it out. Let's be grown ups about it. We don't need to scream, yell, and swear at each other. But you can call me, we can discuss it, I can show you the ordinance and, we can go from there.
I did that little,
Did
it
he?
was my correct, yeah.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's fine. Oh, you put that, I grabbed it, you already said.
If somebody said, if somebody
It's got a letter.
if somebody doesn't, they should have gotten a letter, then I want them to call me.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it, figure it out.
So I got our blocks and our grass is behind. And I get a letter. What is the follow up and all that stuff?
I think the letter said 10 days,
And so on day 11 or 12, what?
probably gonna get a ticket.
No. I got it cleaned up.
Oh, you got it.
Okay, so day 11 and 12, how does it know that you know?
We're gonna go back because we do follow up and then if we go back and see that it's been resolved, close up the file.
And we do that now, even with complaints, so we go close, the only way you're gonna hear from us is if it's not resolved. And most
And we haven't
people,
heard from you.
yeah, and most people will call and be like, hey, I got this letter, my mower broke. We're gonna get it mowed on Tuesday, sorry about that, we go verify that they did mow it on Tuesday and we close it out. And
And if they communicate and say, can we get an extra week? Yeah.
After that. But we're gonna look forward to doing that this spring.
Yeah, so we will do that, we'll try it, and we can always, after, we can kind of, well, I mean, we report to you guys now. Like, we'll do the same thing and give some feedback, and then if you guys give feedback, I would just ask that you share that with staff as well. hopefully our residents, if they have questions, will come up to us and have some discussion with you. So,
So is that an? Is that? Does that need to be an ordinance that we have the spring drive-by? Or is that just,
we have the ordinances on, we're already enforcing ordinances.
so we're moving to a proactive,
Yes,
does that need to be? That need to be an ordinance thing or no?
it does not. And it's really just the policy of how we want to handle it. So our policy has been complaint driven.
So we'll update the policy then, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have a written policy for how we just, that's how we handled it. So we'll try it this way and then kind of review and get from here.
Not much different than say we get running the red light in the road. We'll go focus our attention on that. Just like we had the complaint on Sherman Street. We want to focus some effort and energy on that street until we knock that problem down. To me, it's really the same approach. If there's an issue, and the ordinances are there, we go address the issues on both.
I want to make sure I understand this. So every year, March, let's say, I drive by for a few days, but we still have the complaint driven as well. Okay, so it's a hybrid.
And let's not say police during drive-bys.
I know. I thought that-
And that's what I disagree with. I disagree with that portion of it, that we are being proactive and having our police do a drive-by to check people's properties on the code enforcement, because now it's no longer complaint driven. Because we're being proactive and looking for the complaints. That's what I have an issue with.
There's still an ordinance that has to be followed.
Oh, I totally agree. I'm not opposed to the ordinance. I'm not opposed to complaint driven. I'm not opposed to the process of enforcing compliance or trying to encourage compliance. I have no problems with
But
that.
this is where people are falling through the cracks.
All right. They fall through the
What I
cracks.
think.
They fall through the cracks.
Let them fall through the cracks.
Then that's just how, sometimes that's just how it is. If everything were perfect, we wouldn't need the laws or the rules anyway.
Exactly,
I like,
but
I like. Maybe you should drive one.
maybe I should drive around. They don't like me.
But then that's part of
But
the
being
point too.
proactive, but being proactive. It's keeping people. You know, maybe we see something going on and they get a letter. And maybe there's a reason for it. Maybe they do need help. They don't know how to act.
We have gone to both extremes on the what ifs and on the limitations for all of this. And I'm saying, I'm going to err on the side of they fall through the cracks. Then that's what happened. In using your language, they fall through the cracks.
They fall through the cracks and then you have residents coming in saying,
Then the residents come in and they say, file a complaint. If they come in just to complain, but they're unwilling to file a complaint, that's not our problem. That's just,
and I honestly, I get where you're coming from.
yeah, that's
I
all.
get where you.
If you look at a specific property long enough, you'll find something. That they're out of compliance. If you look at it from the curb, you may not see it from there, but if you did a walk around the property, you might find it in the backyard.
No, we're not
But
doing
we
that.
don't
They're
know.
not doing that. They're
Right,
just driving
that's,
by.
I guess that's where I'm going back to. If we're just doing a cursory look at the front of the property, there may be a problem that you don't see from the front. And the other thing that
Unless they're lucky.
that I wonder about is there a different severity or length of time for them to come into compliance with, depending on what that violation is? If your grass is long, that should take a week to 10 days to get resolved. But if you need a whole new roof or new siding, or it needs to be painted, that might take 30 to 60 days.
There are varying timelines now. We
So-
would follow that same. So grass is 5 days. We have a property that's a property maintenance, they have 30 days. And if they can't, because there may be a cost associated with it, they don't necessarily have to have it done in 30 days, but within 30 days, they need to come to us and say,
Sure.
this is how I'm gonna remedy it. I've gotta say, or whatever it is, within the 30 days, communicate how they're going to address it. And again, we'll work with them, but we do have various signs right now of 10 days. So it does depend on the level, because you're right, building and mowing grass is far easier than painting an entire house.
And there really was only a handful of ordinances we were generally looking at. That was outside storage, garbage and refuse, disabled motor vehicles. Then if we saw something obvious structure like that came off, something like that, then that would something we would refer back to Todd.
Something that affected the entirety of the.
Right. Something was just glaring. Okay, you know, we'd ask Todd for his side, put on that. But so it wasn't like we were going through the entire ordinances that the was going. Yeah, checking them off, are they compliant? You know, more or less, in essence, from my perspective, from an officer's perspective, it was really no different than just being on patrol and observing violations in traffic. You're driving a patrol, you see tall grass that's over 12 inches. Well, that's no different, technically no different than someone blowing a stop sign. It's an ordinance violation. So that was, it was just, again, we were focusing our attention for the moment on the properties versus traffic. So that really was just a shift in focus while we were doing it, not really doing anything more different as far as control goes. We were still driving down the street, but instead of looking for speeders or the stop sign or, you know, failing to yield to a pedestrian crosswalk, now we're just looking for obvious violations as we're driving down the street.
So question for you. You have an officer on patrol. And you drive by a resident. And just went there. Go by that residence a week later and there's grass growing. There's a violation.
And I saw this last week and mentioned to Maddie, it was already being addressed.
So I mean, that's how simple.
I completely understand the process. I completely agree with all the positives that have come out of this. There isn't anything that I do not understand. I'm telling you, I disagree with it. That's all.
I mean, that's an instant where, sorry.
I really want to make more work for myself.
Yeah. I don't disagree with any of the positives she brought up. Totally.
And I'll do whatever you guys tell us.
I know,
You guys, that's.
But I'm not.
You don't want like, okay, March, first week in March, we're gonna go curbside and we're gonna see if it needs to be. A letter needs to be delivered to. Just that.
Correct.
I think you don't want village staff filing the complaint. I think you want the residents to file.
I think that the residents need to do that.
That's what you're saying.
But I think we've already kind of come to a determination that we're gonna do a hybrid. Is what I'm understanding. With the curbside, Marchish, and then the rest will be.
Yes.
And if Kennel has every right to say, I agree with you, I don't think we should be on that, but the rest of it have to be like,
Well,
round favors, you know.
first of all,
It's.
I think it's working out just like it is. When we make a decision, we need to be supportive of each other in the fact that this is a decision that was made, even if you're on an opposing side of it. This is what was decided. And then we, of course, need to back up the staff and the police department. Absolutely.
So way back when this all started with, I think it was almost 10 years ago now. And I remember the initial discussion, we were talking about the Petoskey. Anyone who's been asking to beautiful town, a lot of historic buildings, like what Blissfield. But very well maintained. See, there's a lot of money being spent to maintain those properties. If Blissfield do that with, no, because the median income is not nearly as high as the Petoskey. So we have to acknowledge that and temper that with our enforcement. So that was part of the discussion we back then too. We can't say, oh, we want to be like Grosse Point, where the median income's, you know, for $250,000 a year per household. We don't have that here. We can't say we're going to step our standards up and expect them to spend $30,000 or $40,000, you know, because the police chief saw something. That it was an ordinance violation. Oh, that's not the ordinance. So we're trying to temperate the ordinances with reality, I guess. And again, like I said, I'm not advocating one way or the other because if we're doing the focused approach, proactive approach, it's more work for me. So
I understand.
if we want to go complaint driven, got no problems with for me on that one either. So I'm just here to kind of let you know how it worked both ways.
Yeah.
And leave you guys to decide how you want to.
Beat that thing then. Yep.
Think of that.
Let's move on to take home vehicle policy. So Danielle, send us the proposed policy. Everybody read through it. You happy?
So I wanted to bring this in front of you guys before it was on the council agenda, because I just wanted to make sure this is kind of what you were looking for. So if we had any amendments, we could get them included before it goes to council, and hopefully, not that we can't discuss at council, but hopefully minimize, so we didn't have too lengthy a meeting over this one topic. I did share this with staff. One of the questions that I had was the IRS reporting. I did get some clarification from legal on this. There is an exemption in the IRS rules that do say if the vehicle is being used for business only and it is a marked identified vehicle, with the exception of police who can have an unmarked vehicle, that they can be exempt from IRS reporting requirements. So we only right now have 2 employees. It's not really realistic that we're gonna have a lot more. Like water plant does not have a vehicle, wastewater. We here at the office don't have a vehicle. We're pretty limited. Police and DPW are really our 2 departments that have vehicles that can even be used. And our DPW vehicles are marked. Most all of our police vehicles are, with the exception of the vehicle that chief drives right now. And again, because it's a police vehicle, it can be that marked. So that was kind of the one outstanding big piece that I was waiting on. But otherwise, if you guys have changes, one of the staff recommendations was just to clarify the storage and security. I think I did that. Send it to them again, but if you have something, otherwise this will come to you guys and would be an addition or an amendment into our existing personnel policies.
So on the tax purposes, if the vehicle is marked, that makes it exempt from being.
And can only be used for work. So which is we have this policy now, but for example, Brent drives his vehicle to and from work, that is only for work. Brent cannot go home and then be like, oh, you know what, I'm gonna run over to Country Market and get some groceries, because now it's personal use. In any personal use, there are notes that would have to be reported. We do not allow personal use. We say that vehicle is for you to come to and from work or to respond. If you get called after hours to come back into work, and that's what we limit it to. Now, that being said, if Brent is driving home and he drives past the gas station and he stops and gets a bag of chips on his way, we're not stopping that because he's driving home, it's on his way. It's just those out of the way or making the additional trips.
So this section of tax implications, we can just X out, is what you're saying.
Right.
So they would not have any kind of tax.
Correct.
Well,
But I asked.
when the other vehicle.
Yeah, nobody.
It has to be a marked vehicle or an unmarked police. So-
Marked vehicle,
Gotcha.
Correct. Marked vehicle.
Yes.
So that comes back to me, it comes back to, is it necessary? Is it a needed thing to be able to go home with anybody?
So
I agree with you on that one. Well, the only reason we had the chief, because he would be on the clock running lights, sirens for emergency response. That was based on our insurance recommendation, why the DPW would ever need to come both emergency for anything. It's beyond me. I don't think that would be. Well,
I would disagree with the DPW, because if we're saying that the usage, which is what I think the intent was for emergency. I mean, our DPW, to me, a snowstorm is an emergency. It is a safety concern to get in here and to get our streets clear. If there's a water break, to me, that is an emergency.
But he's never gonna see. Well, the people in this is not a life and death situation, it's not a urgent response into the village. Yes, we need them to get here, but it's not. It's not a rescue, EMS,
So
police,
the-
fire response.
So the vehicle's allowed to be taken home just so we can speed to and from work.
One for the police.
Yes.
So that's the intent, it's the whole insurance coverage and things like that, again. He's coming, lights and sirens. To our village call, or if he's on the block there, that fell back on his private insurance versus. Him operating from the village, well, lights and sirens to the village.
But that's even if you're driving at a normal speed. If I'm driving to work in my own personal vehicle and my vehicle and myself are injured, and I'm not gonna have to take home vehicle, but I'm driving, I'm not speeding, I'm just coming to work, I get in an accident. Technically, I could file a workers' comp claim for myself, but my vehicle's not covered.
No, but this is, doesn't be a village, yeah.
Correct, but I guess I don't understand why speed specifically is a
That's
factor.
light and siren response that was based on the recommendation of the insurance carrier. I never should. Have a response without, you know what I'm saying, it's like.
I think
You know, if water comes emergently to a water plant issues, still drive all vehicles, just get there safe and properly, she doesn't have to do it to get home.
I guess I agree with you. I'm just confused about the speed part a little bit, but that's okay.
It was all about the insurance, I mean, I think back in the day, that's what we had talked about as a council, because.
And I mean, because this has come up a few times, so I looked into the insurance thing. So I agree with you. I guess I didn't understand it was solely so that he could speed into an emergency. I thought it was so that he could ride in and the vehicle at P would be protected, the employee would be protected while responding. I never was under.
Yeah, no, it was more about the insurance coverage on. You know,
Did you find out about coverage?
So exactly what an employee who is coming into work, so I'm gonna pick on you because you're sitting, you do, so chief, there's an emergency in the town and chief needs to respond because he's a working chief, so he's pretty much always on call. So he comes into town and let's say he's driving his personal vehicle and he's responding to that and he gets in an accident. His bodily injuries are covered under workers' compensation and our insurance. His personal vehicle would not be covered. His personal vehicle insurance would have to pick that coverage up.
And it would not. That's what started this conversation.
Now, if he's in a village-owned vehicle, the village vehicle is covered under our insurance because he's responding to that event. And he remains them. So either way, his bodily injuries are covered. It's the vehicle that's.
The way that this issue came forward. My insurance agent has to be a police officer and known for 35 years. And just has me having a discussion one day, so wait a minute. Are you responding to calls in your personal cars? Yes, sometimes. He says, you're not covered by your insurance policy. Get crashed. In effect, you're driving an uninsured or vehicle at that point, which is against the law. You can't do that. He goes, we're not going to cover you. He goes, you're opening yourself up to a criminal personal liability for injuries, property damage, whatever. If you get into a crash, you're gonna have major problems. So that's how the conversation got started. And it was a question of, do you want me available to respond? Calls when they come up and get or not? And that was the test. The answer is yes. Then I can't be using my personal vehicle because in effect I'm breaking the law. by using my personal vehicle. That was the number that we're in. It's not that I like parking. I'll be honest, I don't like parking a police car in front of my house. It draws a lot of attention. And I didn't, it's rotated. But it comes with the job. It is a necessary evil in my blood. That's where I'm standing. If it's a situation where there's no more expectation that I would respond off duty to anything happen, or crime of any sort, well, yes, there's no necessity for the that's it's and this is something Grant has framed. Grant has NNL, and they were all in concurrence with insurance agent was telling me. They all said the same thing. Yes, he is uninsured. He's driving that vehicle, personal vehicle,
And that's you.
in the capacity to find to a crime, to a call. So I can't do it. Ironically, under Michigan state law, volunteer firefighters have a special statute. They can equip their personal vehicles with lights and siren. Michigan state law does not afford police officers in the state of Michigan with that same, I want to call it luxury, but same avenue.
Provision.
Thank you. So we are not, and I see some lot of that, problems in larger cities with police officers and things like that, so I get that. But there is that distinction. I'm not a firefighter, I'm a police officer, so I can't put my personal car with lights and sirens. It's
State police officers take it.
What constitutes asking, being educated? What constitutes an emergency for the chief of police to come to the village? What? asking?
and we have that notification policy now, but generally it's the property crime, violent crime.
I'm not trying to be stupid here.
A shooting, an aggravated assault of some sort, kidnapping, missing child, coming several times on missing child, missing children.
Fatality.
Sure, absolutely. Anything with fatality, if there was a death investigation where there's some suspicious circumstances, fortunately, we don't have that kind of problem. Like, but there, these sort of national event, there was a weather event. We've had those ice storms, things like that. So when I need to get in here to need additional manpower for they need some directions, those are situations when I need to get here.
So clarify this for me. This is where I don't forget it. All right, so we already have police officer on duty, another police officer on duty. Why? I think I know the answer. That's why I'm asking. Why is it necessary that you come right away? Meaning, why are you called if there are already officers here? Okay.
Generally, it's one officer,
Okay,
especially at night.
okay,
If it's a missing child, we need manpower. If it's a weather-related event, like we had the ice storm a few years ago, you're gonna need more than one officer here to address the issues. They have to pop up, whether it's coordinating with PW or MDOT or with the emergency operations center. That's
so
something
the other
that
officers
I'm
would come, but they don't have a vehicle, so the other officers would come, they don't have a vehicle. Code. Again, I'm just asking for education purposes,
What?
why, for the storm, the ice storm. I don't understand
what other officers?
well, if there's another officer here on duty, and if you're saying that there's the other officers would have been called in, are you
No,
referring
I'm
to
referring to
yourself
myself.
to yourself as the other officer?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
that's what I'm missing, I'm missing it, for the officers coming. That's, you're referring to yourself as that
For myself,
officer.
the additional manpower.
Oh, okay.
Because my expectation is 24/7. I'm expected to be.
As the chief of
As
police.
chief of police.
That's what distinguishes you, obviously, from the other guys. So that's where your role comes in. It doesn't have to be a life or death. Example, the ice storm. I guess you could say potentially,
It was a policy.
but it's public.
Well, and it can be like that. You're talking pretty temperatures and towers out.
I hear what you're saying.
Then it's like, we get into a discussion, talking to consumers, how long some power be out? We have estimated restoration times. Depending on how severe the weather is, we start talking about warming centers. And we did have a conversation during the ice storm with the schools about opening a warming center if necessary. So that takes coordination. It takes phone calls, and that's not something necessarily that the night officer
I see.
is prepared to do. That's my job.
And it's,
That's what I.
for only for light center response either, right?
No, it's
You're the
not
senior,
senior.
you're the senior command officer of the village police, so you're gonna be the one that's making the ultimate decisions, right? Guiding your officers how to.
How many
investigate
times-
what to-
How many times in the
In a
amount of
year,
time, well, in the amount of time that you've had the vehicle, how many times has it been that this has had to occur?
No.
2019.
Yes. Probably.
Is it that's total time, not 20 times a year, that's 20 times total?
yeah, I would say,
Roughly.
it's 28, 15 years.
I would say
7 or 8 times a year.
plus.
And you never know when that's gonna happen.
And it's not just going like sirens, like in the ice storm.
Right.
My car can go just as fast as anybody else's, so I'm gonna get here when I get here as safely as I can get. If there, we did have one particular case, we had a missing child. And the initial circumstances were extremely suspicious. Our initial suspicion was it was a straight kidnapping. I'm getting her. And we got, thank God we found it. But initial circumstances were extremely suspicious. And by the time I got here, we had already coordinated K9 response from the state police. There were helicopters on the way. And, you know, while I'm coming here, I'm on the phone, getting things coordinated with the suspension, that sort of thing. So there's a lot going on in that time span for me to get here. And I think I was here maybe 20 or 30 minutes. Here, look at the child, grab it quickly. That was a pretty dramatic incident, but it's when it sticks out, guys, we all get geared up and pile the call. But you know, incidents happen. We had break-in, case. And both systems were arrested county. But there are times when you get here, the accident, hold the right investigation, especially more complicated ones. But it's not like I'm sitting there hoping that I get called.
No, I understand.
So I did that for a number of years in Detroit, so those days, I've had my share of that.
Well, your explanation is, you know, educated, because I think we as council need to be educated. I would not have guessed any of those numbers. Not that I need to be privy to those numbers, but when I hear those numbers, when I hear the explanation, I have more of an understanding. I guess I need that, because honestly, residents have asked me about.
Then there's the less dramatic, there's, in fact, just a week ago, I had to go to State Police Front in Northville. Yeah, the patrol car, but that's even a patrol car out of the fleet. So there's those instances where you go to the county or go to Lansing or go to Northville. Sure. Maybe once a month or twice a month for those types of trips. We're having that car, it's not part of the fleet. Right? It's a lot more convenient. A lot of times I can just go straight to my house, look what I got to do. Work.
It's very common, what you, again, asking for education.
It
It's
is
very common for. Again, education, I just keep saying this, because I don't want anybody saying I'm against the cops and all this stuff that is stated. I don't want it to go on record as something silly like that. For educational purposes, everybody around us does the same thing and asking.
Yeah, it is very common. In fact, it's become more common than not practice. In some communities, their policies may vary a little bit. Some communities, their entire police force takes home their police vehicles, so they're assigned. Every officer is assigned a vehicle that gets that they take home.
Communities
in their
our size as well.
Ranging all, yes, our size all the way up to larger.
Why do those guys, quite some
So it,
larger?
yeah, again, it varies a little bit depending what the community can afford. Like, we don't have the vehicle for every officer, so that's not realistic for us. We can't afford one. I mean, I'd love to, sorry, Chief. Because we know that's not a reality. Some communities put a mileage limit, so because we don't have a residency requirement, so some communities will say, no, we're good with it, but if you live and I'm making something more than 30 miles away, we're not gonna let you take it home because that's an added cost because you're driving further. Or whatever that mileage is. So again, the policies change, but it is more common than not to have take home vehicles for employees who are responding to after hours emergencies or events.
When David was it's cheaper. Smaller as well, smaller.
But Jansen suffered, so.
Yeah.
Is, you know,
So, and he drove home and he had to, because there were residents who were. So we're talking like this is the county of Jackson, this is Springport and he was over here. So like almost 3/4. So he had to explain. Because then, so. We live here, he patrols here, here's the sheriff's department, courthouse and everything. So he would have to, time-wise, he would have to drive to work, get his patrol car, or courthouse, and go back. He drove to the courthouse right from, I mean, as soon as he checks where he gets the car, he's checking on the service alone, and then going back, it's very cold the rest of the day.
And I'm
That
glad
was
to
the
have a
only-
discussion. but-
That was the only reason why he had to explain why he needed a, and plus they have an emergency. Yeah, he was available.
But I will say this, I sacrifice a lot of gambling. For the take-home car, which is something very precious to police officers. I think if you were to give all the officers take-home cars, most of them would want it. They. We're off duty, what would be off duty, like you separated from your job. Everyone. Especially at this level, so,
Well,
yeah.
Every state.
Keep the questions. Is your car equipped to pull over and issue tickets to a speeder?
I don't have a computer, but I do keep a ticket book in there, so yeah, it makes sense.
So you could do that.
Yes, yes,
Let's say you're.
there's,
In our jurisdiction,
there's, there,
right?
only in my jurisdiction.
Right.
Yeah,
Correct, but you could do that if you're coming into work and somebody passes you because you're on a unmarked mark and doing 50 and a 30, you hold them all.
Oh, yeah.
And issue a ticket. Is your vehicle also equipped to respond to an active shooter situation?
yeah, I keep a lot of, equipment.
I'm only asking just because I think it should be.
I have geared. Literally physically geared that vehicle. With the schools in mind, and you and I have talked about this before. During the school year, school day, I wake up every morning. First thought is, it's save the day. It's save, and we've had it, not recently, but in years past, there were some issues that popped up in schools and there was a pretty immediate response. We had a person that wrecked on a motorcycle when Officer Lynch was here. And disappeared. Yeah. He had school in the salt market, morning and found the person fairly close to the school, but there was kind of a manhunt going on while there was ingress in the schools that morning. I didn't get over here that morning. We found that person hiding behind the bar. Outside of town. But those issues can pop up and the people out of medical here and here and extra technical equipment, things that we might need, I think, in the vehicle ready to go.
Yeah, I'm in favor of it because you ought to be able to go to any call here in the village limits and have everything that you need.
So, a lot of it.
But
Yeah.
question, no?
Yeah, please, I got, other ones, one thing, okay, so. Can you just say it to me one more time, so that if someone asks me, because when they do, I want you to speak this intelligently. Your first. Tell me about the insurance, that's what I.
Okay.
It's
So-
it's really simple.
You have of your personal vehicle, and you have
Yes.
personal insurance. If you
Yes.
look at your insurance policy,
Yes,
there are provisions in there that you cannot use your personal vehicle for work. It's in your insurance policy. Even more so for my line of work. Because, if I'm responding, if I'm coming into my personal vehicle, it is now work-related. It is not covered by insurance. State law requires that your vehicle be insured if it's operating on a public road. So therefore, the vehicle is now an uninsured motor vehicle. It's a state misdemeanor. For me to be driving, responding to a call in a personal car. That's how it breaks down. I'm actually committing a criminal offense. If I respond to a call in my personal car, I can't do it. It's against the law.
because it's work related.
And you look at your insurance policy down at the fine print, it says, your vehicle is referred to the person who's sold.
When I was a road trip, I didn't carry extra insurance. Why in my car? Why? Because sometimes I had people in my vehicle with me.
And that was part of.
We have to provide the township our copy of our insurance due for you on fire calls, technically for responding. So it just says protection.
So, but our village insurance would pay, what does village insurance do then?
So village insurance covers any of our village owned vehicle.
Gotcha.
And then village insurance covers the employee when they're acting in their
And
job
that's where
or
he's-
responding to a call.
So he's got the vehicle and he's the employee.
Right.
He's
So that's why we've said that it makes sense to have a take home vehicle because then the vehicle and the employee are both.
And that's where that's,
And even what we're proposing here. It's gonna be put in writing. We're already. The guidelines that I was using.
oh,
I don't have passengers, in my
you
vehicle.
understand why.
Oh, yeah, it's not a problem. And I fully support it. We should have it in writing. We should have done this on that, though. But I don't have family members in my car. I can go to the grocery store with it. One, it's going to be an abuse of public trust. Yeah, public trust, really. Two, something happens, I got a lot of swing. Okay, why are we at the grocery store with a kid in the car? You know, something happened. So it just, again, it's about being responsible with the equipment.
Can I ask you a question? And please do not take offense to this, but I'm gonna throw it right out here. Have you ever taken the Blissfield police car to Dundee when you were working for Dundee?
Yes,
Would you clarify that for the record? Because I
the understanding,
had people ask and I said, you know, I cannot answer that question because I don't know the answer and I don't want to speak for you.
I don't work there anymore, but when I did, the understanding was that if something were to jump off in Blissfield went priority. So yes, and that happened one time where I had to leave straight to Blissfield. I had an understanding with that chief that Blissfield was my primary jurisdiction. If I'm helping you out, but I get a call, I gotta go.
But the
So-
vehicle went from here to Dundee, and then from Dundee to your home,
That was it.
and that was the route that is. I just want it on the record so that it's very clear and nobody's saying stuff later on. Thank you for addressing it.
So how do you determine? The public perception is important too, because the public's perception is that when we're giving them a vehicle to drive back and forth to work. So shouldn't there be some type of money attached to that he's taking, it's not like income? That's the perception that many of the public have.
Well,
Just had that
that's where
conversation before.
those IRS rules come into play. So, I mean, we follow what the IRS says, and the IRS specifically gives an exemption for using a
Police vehicle.
work vehicle for the sole purpose of work and with the requirements of it has to be identified, or if it's not identified, it's an unmarked police car. So we fit those specific exemptions. Otherwise, yes, you are correct, that you would have to meet those tax implications. So if we said you're allowed to take home a police vehicle and you can use it for whatever, he would have to report to the IRS because he's now using his village-owned vehicle to do personal things. We've said, no, we don't allow that. It's for the sole purpose of coming and going to work. So we restricted that to meet the ISS requirements. Yes, yes. But Brent takes home a vehicle as well. His vehicle is marked because obviously he's not a police officer, so he can't. But it is identified that it's a village on the vehicle. He can only go to and from work. Chief unmarked, so it's an exemption only to and from.
For police officers. Why does Steve in Florida?
Because they don't own any, they don't have any vehicles. The only departments that have vehicles in the village are the police and the DPW.
Help me out, Brent's vehicle. I don't understand. Educate me.
So Brent made the request and I reviewed it and I'm the one that approved it because we allow an employee already to take home a vehicle to respond to after call or after hours events. So Brent is also, if there's something that happens after hours, he's on call all the time. If there's, he's the one as the supervisor that wakes up at 3 a.m. He says, okay, we've got a snow event, we've got to go in. And then he's similar to, I mean, obviously different responsibilities, but similar, is going to be the one that comes in and coordinates and gets people where they need to be and responds to after hours calls regularly. So I did approve it because my understanding is we were saying that the employee, we want them to be, them, the vehicle to be covered when they're coming and going to work after hours for whatever emergency event. And my mind, a water emergency, obviously life is going to be our highest level emergency. But to me, those things are just as important if you're coming into a water break or if you're coming in for a snow removal or, I mean, Brent gets called less severe, but more frequently. So that's why I thought if we're going to do for one, we should do for the other.
Does the insurance, my apologies.
I'd like to discuss that.
Um,
I mean, I just think that would be nice to have it this kind of level. Just because there's been so much discussion about this over the years, I could understand it would have been.
Well, I think you know that we have already talked to her, but not.
well, he did. Okay, so, and he and I disagree on this because you set the policy and then it's my job to enforce or to follow that policy. So you had already as council established a policy that there was a take-home vehicle policy allowed. So I granted that same thing.
Tell me about the insurance then for Brett. It's the same situation as Chief's insurance because of the vehicle and him if you know the same vehicle. So that's the rationale.
The difference is that I think when this was initially looked at is that chief may respond to and this is where Mike said at a higher speed. So he may be more likely to get into an accident, I think was maybe the theory. I don't know that that's right or wrong. I mean, he's not the training for that. He's responding after hours.
You know, unless Brent has the snowplow in the front of it and, you know, a water meter, you know, in the back, you know what I'm saying? He still has to come to town and get the equipment that he needs to do. Right. So again, I don't understand.
The way that I view this is that him having a vehicle to take home ensures, ENSURE, ensures that he is able to get to town, to work, to coordinate, and to do whatever he needs to do. He's not dependent upon his vehicle to get him there in the event that his vehicle is unable to get him there for whatever reason. And that's not part of the what I'm trying to talk about here. It's a way for us to ensure that Brent is able to do his job and to respond when he needs to respond. That's how I look at it.
But normally, if he has to respond, there's 2 or 3 other ones or 4 ones that are responding as well. So say we get a water main break. And then, so Brent's called and he's on his way. Well, he's not gonna drive the truck that he drove in, plus the dump truck, plus the front end loader and the backhoe over to Sugar Street.
But he's the only one that we
But
need
he's
to
gonna
have
assess
here.
if it's so, if the rest of the crew needs to come in immediately, or is it something that they can come in when they're scheduled to, or can we do a staggered start? Or, so he's gonna be the one that assesses whatever the situation may be. And then from there.
Yeah,
Direct.
we have to ensure that we have one person being able to make those decisions. And that's how I do this. You him being able to take one home. And then he, like you said, yeah, then he'll determine and assess what needs to be done, who then needs to come in. And then he goes from there. But at least we know that we've got the main guy.
Campaign.
Which is the same thing we're doing at the police department, because again, if we have a kidnapping, chief's gonna come in, he's the supervisor, he's gonna assess, he's gonna talk to the other officer, he's gonna make his phone calls, and he's gonna say, Jacob, I need some help, or Tom, or whoever, and it's gonna be very similar, so I guess that's where I'm not sure that, other than police and DPW's roles are different, they're responding, they're doing the same thing. To me, it's not fair to say you can have it, but not you. And that's how I evaluate it.
Well, then we should have one for Steve and Laura. And you? Well, you can get called in on emergency.
That would be great. I'm also on call 24/7.
I mean, so where does it end? That's where I'm going with this. Where does it end? Because
the
we
policies-
can yeah, but this all night. And so where does it end?
I mean, the policy says that it's based on duties, based on positions, based on, but I don't have a car. So I can ask for one all day long, but unless you guys are gonna go buy a brand new car, which I'm not gonna ever recommend because we can't afford to buy a
I
brand new
think,
car.
yeah, you've already told us, we have 2 departments that have vehicles, that's it, it's over.
Yes.
It ends right
That's
there.
what's on-
It's
Now,
not- there's your end.
And they're marked other than chief's car, but this is included in that.
now, if we decide we're gonna go buy a vehicle for water treatment, then we're gonna have a discussion, say, okay, now is Nora taking this home?
I don't want the discussion there.
Well, and that's going to be, because we're not gonna ask for that, because we know what the budget is, and our priority is getting stuff at the water plant or water mains fixed and things like that, but also, when you look at the calls after hours that Steve and Nora and Brent get, they're vastly, and even Chief, they're vastly different. And I'm not saying Steve and Nora are never called out, but nowhere near the amount of times.
We get a heavy thunderstorm, Steve, with the wastewater treatment plant. Or whatever time it is. I mean, I'm not saying that's any less of an emergency than.
And that's why I'm not saying he never gets called,
Right.
I'm just.
But is that just on his own accord though? He just comes in just because he wants to monitor?
Well, he
Well,
probably has to.
usually, it's to ensure that if we've lost power, that the generator started. That we're not
Then,
having
you know,
issues. And it's the same with the water plant as well.
If there's a large monitor, he monitors the flows to make sure we're not seeing anything that's gonna put us in trouble with, whether it's a boil advisory or where.
Which, yeah, state of origin help with that a
Yeah,
lot. So,
oh yeah, I'm sure it has. It's helped out tremendously on both the water treatment and the wastewater.
And
That's
don't get me wrong, I'd love to give Nora a seat if I'm just saying they don't have one available.
Well, I'm saying, I'd say about if residents have questions about it, these guys are also, I guess, have to speak lightly, but elder, they've had more time on the job than a lot of these other police chiefs or supervisors in the same position, and the pay is probably different. Is a lower paid chief.
Going the wrong direction here.
I'm saying that's a.
Yeah.
That's, I'm not saying, no, I know, but all I'm saying is if people want to question that, let's.
You're looking at you right now.
There's a small frame, but
I think it's more the position that. It's just a position, it's not the money or how long they've been there.
That's the only thing I.
Because
but if that's what people are thinking, this is a money thing, it's not, it's not.
Well,
It's not a money thing. Okay, here,
yes,
I want to be able to deliver my police services facility anytime it is needed, anytime day or night. I want to be able to get here. That's my personal drive. That's my personal dedication and conviction to the village of Blissfield. I want to be here if I'm needed to be here. At the end of the day, when this issue brought my attention, I brought it to Jim's attention, I think, Frank time, and then MML, and they concurred, they said, yeah, no, you can't. can't be responding in his personal car. It is against the law. You can't do it. So now we have an issue. Now we have guilty knowledge. Now we know about it. You know, now we know about it, and that makes it even worse. Because then if we move forward, then there could be a civil claim of action against not just me, but the village that you knew it was against the law for him to drive his vehicle, and you allowed him to do it anyway.
Or we didn't allow for it and you didn't respond right away.
Well,
And there was something-
and that's the flip. What does the village want? You want me not responding? And just stay home and I'll see you at 9 a.m. when I get here? I mean, that's the flip.
And this this is part of why I brought the part of this discussion meeting is because the public's perception, they need to be educated too.
Sure.
Because some of these things we talked about tonight have brought a different light to the whole thing. That I don't think a lot of people understand. Some of us in here understand it better than others. I know Mike probably understands some of this better than I do, because he's been on the council much longer than I have.
We just need to be able to give them the reasons and to say, this is exactly why.
I suggested way back.
Clarification.
Yeah. The facts may hurt.
Falls back to other things we dealt with too, with like the water situation, with our water prices. Our other things that go on in the village, because the transparency falls on us to be as transparent as all of us can be to the general public. The general public, and I try to be delicate on this, doesn't know what they don't know. And their perception and their keyboard warriors out there that type up stuff because they're not informed. So our job as a whole community in a village
A
council
lot of these people are just.
is try to inform them as much as we possibly can so that hopefully in the future, those issues are alleviated.
When
Not
this all
eliminating,
came up, I even
We're not
suggested,
eliminating those.
I suggested to Jim, we did explore this idea and MML went out. So I had suggested, so why, how about the village subleases my car from? And then we can put a municipal plate on it, like the sirens. And then I would cover, my personal car would be covered by the village's insurance carrier and MML went now. That's, you know, if I'm responding, then I would have insurance covered. And MML. So we tried to get creative in pressing this. I'm just saying, oh, I gotta give me a car. I gotta have a car. I knew it was gonna be an issue, and it's been an issue. And I'll be honest, it's aggravating. It has been an albatross around my neck. I'll be honest. Have to be party. Want to say, take a car and we'll see it at 9 a.m. But that's not why you hired me. That's not why I've been here for 12 years. It's not the police officer I've been for 2 years. If I need it, I'm going to be here.
And you understand, when I brought this up, whenever it was November, December, we're going through the ordinances, we are updating so many things. It would never.
Part of this was
It was
less than the department policy, partially, but it's a little more.
I think still something, I got another comment about the thing, I don't think it's complete yet, not in my opinion. But I think I wanted you to clarify, I wanted to clarify to you, it wasn't a you thing. Chief, it wasn't you, it's the position, just like the position of DPW, it's not a branch thing. It's the DPW supervisor thing, it's the chief of police thing, whether it's you or Jacob Wagner. It needs to be discussed, and I got my little notes here, of course, it's just a matter of that we have to go ahead and, it's just good governance to come back. Do our due diligence and just say, okay, let's revisit this. I do think, one of the things here, I have my notes stand now, is criteria for a vehicle, and maybe I'm missing something here. So let's say, for example, we get a boatload of money, all right, and, we are able to purchase vehicles. For Nora, and I'll be taking people out of it, your water. Plant, you know what I'm saying, supervisor, wastewater plant supervisor. What is the criteria, what is our criteria for someone to take a vehicle home? Is it going to always be you guys, the supervisor has, it's just a supervisor, this is why? Is that how? Even though Tim, you're saying we don't have two vehicles now, you see where I'm going for the future. So, okay, now we've got the money, so where does it stop? Well, would that person get it? Who would get it first?
I would worry about that when it comes, like, yeah, like if we had an on-call person, then it had to make it.
And just
well,
say-
yeah, but
I just say-
precedence.
I would like something in here. So
So
to
you
clarify,
have an eligibility section,
Maybe that's-
maybe we
maybe
need
that's
to expand or add to this, but on, it's page 2 of your packet under eligibility, take-home vehicle privileges may be granted to certain positions based on job duties, emergency response requirements, on-call responsibility, or other documented business needs. So it would be evaluated on a base by base. And then it says that it must be approved by the village administrator and documented in writing. And that it can be modified or revoked at any time. So before this policy was even in place, Brent has a letter in his file. And I think you guys got a copy of it, if I could be wrong, because it's been granted a little bit ago, that says exactly this, that it's been reviewed. I, as the administrator, approved it. I can revoke it. These are the rules. If you break them, it can be revoked. So we're already doing
Okay,
this.
so this-
But if you want that to be something different,
no, I was looking for the word criteria. I didn't think of the word eligibility as meshing with that. So that's the, as long as we have something to say, this is what would qualify you to have a vehicle, that's what. Yeah, that does.
okay.
Okay.
Prior to this, there really wasn't much of a policy. in place with it.
Well, the take home, the vehicle policy is the non-highlighted part in our existing. And then there are some redacted things that are kind of meshed in now. So we did have a policy, it was just.
You don't have your
That is,
police department has a whole motor vehicle policy. I mean, it's probably 14 or 15 pages long. So it didn't cover take home cars specifically, but it was vehicle use. It's definitely covered.
Clear it up for, hopefully not up, but only us, the public as well.
Well, it helps me to be able to respond with clarity. Because I would not ask, and of course, I think public perception is, it's a perk. I know, Chief, that you would say, maybe not so much, but I'm not gonna say I disagree with that, I'm just going by it's a perk, it's a vehicle, it's money that the village is spending. And it is, the fact of it is, it is. It's a fact. But now I can justify the fact. Clarify the fact, I know the right word is third.
Both.
Yeah, so maybe that's what it is. And we would have to clarify it. Before Brent had the vehicle, what did he used to do that day? Just to drive down his own vehicle?
yes.
And that would be technically against law, what'd you call that thing? Thing of lying?
It's not a law for Brent, it's a law for chief.
Because Brent wouldn't be responding in a.
He's not a police officer.
Emergency type.
He's not a police officer.
He's not a first responder.
Right,
Well. Right, Public Works actually is classified as a first responder, but he's not a police.
He's not a police
he's not-
officer. That's the difference.
Yes.
Police officer, the law requires him to take the car home. Our
It's
person,
gonna be.
if
Responding.
he's gonna be a 24/7.
unless it comes out at 9 o'clock, we have regards to what happens, and that's not what we're choosing,
Correct.
yes. But with Brent.
But the same insurance rules are going, I don't know Brent's personal insurance, and he's not a police officer, so I don't think it's against law, but if Brent responds to the bill, he bodily is covered, his personal vehicle is not. So it's the same rule,
Yes.
other than the personal insurance side. It's his personal insurance is saying you're a police officer, we're not covering you
Right.
responding. I don't know if.
Well, any of the other DPW, that's your plan, do the same.
It's
Supervisor.
the DPW, as I understand it, it is for our insurance. We are insuring, insuring
Right.
that
that's what you're
our
saying.
first responder, that him as the first responder for the DPW department to coordinate anything that he needs to coordinate, he gets here to do that. And so we are allowing him to take that car, to take that truck home.
And he could still get here in his own vehicle.
Well, sure he could,
And
but we are
Okay.
ensuring that he gets here.
I'm, okay, yeah,
That's
okay.
why.
Sorry, guys, don't get at me. I gotta go back to this. Sorry. Okay. So. Reach is a whole separate thing.
Yes,
Brent Castle is a whole separate thing.
Let's go with positions.
the supervisor, the DPW
Thank you, I should
supervisor
go
is a whole
through this.
different
I
thing.
know better, so sorry.
No,
No, I need to go with positions. That's exactly what I said. So the position, the DPW dude. Would go ahead and come in on his own vehicle. From a financial point, asking, is it cheaper when he comes in on his own financial? Versus what the village ends up paying for the. Fuel, upkeep, etc. Asking. That makes sense? I'm asking. I know what you're asking.
Yes. Yes. He's driving his own vehicle, so yes, we're not then paying the gas for him to come into work. But we have asked Brent, we've asked the supervisor, sorry, to be available on call for emergencies after hour 24/7. So we're saying in order to ensure that you get here in after hours event, that we're giving you a vehicle to take home.
Not sure how I feel about that. I'm sorry.
You don't have to be
That's
sorry.
fine. Do you understand it?
I understand now.
Okay.
I believe I do. Slow learn.
Let's replay Penn's statement. I 100%.
There you go. It's great. Well, exactly right. But that's why I asked them.
Okay.
Do you understand?
Yes, yes, I do understand. Okay, thank you.
Yes,
Okay, I hear you. I hear you.
and you understand, but you disagree at this moment.
I think I might.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for indulging everybody. And no offense.
No.
You're asking good questions. Yeah, it's not the person, it's the position.
Absolutely.
And it's always about money for people asking questions.
It always is about money and I get it. And I
Yes,
I asked
and probably the question that the public could ask is, if you all view that position as that important? And I would say, yes.
understand. I understand.
I would say yes. And they could say, well, I don't.
Yes.
I don't view that. I said, okay, I'm sorry, we're going to have to agree to disagree. And that's okay.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And on your calendar for next year, we'll talk about it again. I hope not.
The policy will go to council for official action and adoption to be amended into our personnel policy. And then hopefully, I mean, the policy's never written in stone, it can always be changed, but hopefully we've moved on and we can worry about other.
It's not glamour stuff, it's stuff that needs to be discussed.
Yeah, and it's good to have this policy, because Chief said they have one, but this covers all.
But yeah, I definitely.
After the kind of stuff I want to have these issues too.
Because otherwise it's left handed.
Discussion and we can work details out and work things together, getting answers rather than hash it out.
I totally agree. It is great to review these things.
The review needs to be there, the clarity needs to be there.
Absolutely.
Exactly. You guys care? Again, I know it's 7:20, but can we throw two more little things in here?
But they are. There's something.
Well, once we got Brian here from CFS, if we did, I don't know if you saw the emails, it sounds like Brian is good to go. They're on board with saying, okay, you need to find a solution, or you can find a solution. So I guess Brian's probably your task. If we have any questions as council, obviously it's something that we can act on. I think Daniel wants to bring it to council on next month, right?
Yes, I did email you guys. I didn't get a weekly summary out last week, so that's the only email you should have got from me, because I didn't have time. But I included there's 3 attachments from RIGA, the resolution that they had, and then the 2 amendments, 1 for water, 1 for sewer. I've sent this to Dave. I'm still reviewing Dave's, so I sent this last week. I think on Thursday.
Keep going down.
So
The 11th.
it is going to council next Monday for consideration. I had just put in the email that if you guys could take a peek at it, if you had questions or concerns, get them to me so that I could share them with Brian and Riga. Again, staff's still reviewing, but Brian's here if you do have questions. Otherwise, if you don't, that's okay. You can still get them to me and I will still make sure that they know ahead of time what those concerns may be too, so.
That's for proposed amendment language, 11, so. So that's that, and then I also wanted to discuss, real quickly. So I was in earlier, and Danielle mentioned something about, well, we're talking benefits and stuff, she was talking about her PTO and how she's full, obviously, because we're short staffed in the front office, same with Lisa, so I wanted to bring up, their banks are maxed. I don't want them just losing a benefit of having their PTO bank, just people and losing those hours. But number two, they're also, and potentially Maddie too, right? Filling the role of that position that's missing. So again, I think it's fair to us to say, do we compensate them in a way? I know their salary, but again, they're performing quote two duties, two functions, two roles. It's almost a kicking the butt to them to say you're not going to get your PTO. So either we help pay them out or vice versa, or we don't have the PTO paid at this time until we come up with that.
Well, we're not paying the position right now either. So there's that pool of money there.
Right, exactly, and
But you gotta watch how you,
yes, so
how we do this, we consider as past, present, past and practice, and we gotta do it the right way.
yeah, but I think that's the fair thing to do. And
So are you saying like that using PTO time and see time or?
there's probably plenty of it. Yeah, that's a great. Yeah, that's an
You guys
opportunity.
have
That's
a-
what I didn't discuss.
guys-
Or didn't think
Does
of.
it have to be in now? Have a preference?
I brought,
Yeah, so I asked that.
Let's
Kevin, give.
yeah, so I did bring this up to Mike, so Lisa and I specifically, were both capped. So right now, obviously our treasurer is gone, so I'm doing the day-to-day, not do that alone. Lisa's helping me immensely. Maddie is doing some things. I'm certainly not saying Maddie's doing nothing. Maddie is not capped in her position. She is off this week. I would like Lisa to take time off. I would like to take time off, but realistically, right now, it is challenging to do that. And I don't feel that it's fair for me to say, Lisa, I really need your help filling the role of this treasurer position. By the way, make sure you take your time off, but still get all this extra work done. And the same for myself. Right, so we're losing time, so I don't want, I brought it up to Mike and I said, I don't really know how to address this because it's not something that is common. I don't want it to be common. I want the employees to take time off. I want to take time off.
And I just.
But I wanna
thought it wasn't
be-
fair.
Yeah, I want to be fair to us too. So I think, and I don't want to speak for Lisa, but we briefly talked about it. We don't want to be complainants. We're not asking for something grand and crazy. We're just saying any consideration we appreciate. So whether it's removing the cap on her PTO. But no, when we hire that position, we're not gonna automatically go back down, because we're gonna have to take that time off. So it could be that, it could be hey, we're gonna pay you for, I'm making up a number, whatever, 30 hours so that it gets down and you're not losing in this time. But again, once it's filled, you've gotta meet that requirement to take your time or you're gonna lose it. I don't want it to be a long-term thing, just kind of an interim in the we we both work Friday again. It's just a lot to
Lisa, do you
do.
have a preference?
And we're not complaining about it. We just don't want to lose time either.
I would like for you guys to go ahead and come up with a game plan, and present something to us to say, I'd like to do this. You see, you want to do one thing and Danielle, you do something else. I'm okay with that. Maybe you both don't want to do the same thing. I don't know.
That would be nice, but that's hard to track, especially down the line. I would rather say either they get some sort of like stipend and and not like they even better than billing PTO, because who's to say they'll ever use down the line because their bank is already full. So yes, we want them to utilize that, but I want to be fair to our employees.
So what do you mean by comp time?
Specifically
Specifically,
to say, okay, well, you made these hours that you work, these extra hours. So now if you work, say you work Friday, so now maybe you get another day off down the line. that you're.
So I don't even use what I have already gained, so comp time to me is not a big incentive because I don't even use what I get now.
So the financial end of the stipend or.
Either that or take the cap off from what, because like I've lost, we get 6 point something hours for the past several payrolls. Right.
You know,
During the contract negotiations, I did see some policies from other police departments that address this issue. And they have triggering events like for sick time or, if they hit the cap, it triggers and they get a payout for, generally it's like 40 hours. Maybe the department for the city would pay them out 40 hours, drop their hours back. And then, but they only do that maybe once or twice a year or something like that. So there are policies out there that deal with this type of issue. We have a cap, and Danielle is, you're at the low end of the caps.
220.
So,
Is the cap, and I struggled when we were fully staffed, losing, I had lost time before that, it's my fault. Now, it's really to get the job done.
you're doing 3 jobs.
Yeah, I'm also covering parks and Rec.
We don't want to burn you out either, though. We want you to utilize that. You know what I mean? So again, we get it. We've got a lot that's going on in the front. But that helps us justify maybe we need a part-time position, maybe we need somebody else that's down the line. We need to be realistic about it, but it's also fair you guys say you can only do so much and we only expect so much out of you. But I think in the meantime, the short term, while we're down this position, it would be nice to help them out.
You could have what,
Honestly, my first thought was just to take the cap off the bank, so then at least we're not losing it. But we can,
I mean, you got 20 hours now, we raise that limit,
yeah,
we're gonna use it.
well, I mean, hopefully.
okay, fine, right.
We're fully staffed.
Yeah. Where's
But
the
yes, that's kind of what we talked about. We're like, okay, we remove the cap and then somebody starts and now all of a sudden we're like, okay, we gotta try to take 80 hours off to get below our cap. So that's probably also not realistic. So I don't know. I honestly didn't really, I guess, think about it in a lot of detail. My first
I don't
thought
even
was
use what I have.
went to Mike, said, hey, you're president, how should we get talked about this? 'Cause
Yeah,
it's
but I
kind
don't
of
even use what I have.
Situation that.
I don't use sick time. I don't use executive leave.
When they did, when they do that, with a special amount, was it, did they receive hourly or was it?
I'm trying to recall it. There was one city in particular that I read theirs, because it caught my eye, I thought it was interesting. And I believe it dealt with their sick time, I think their sick time had a cap, but they accrue monthly. And if they hit the cap, the city would pay them out for 40 hours.
That regular pay.
Yes.
Okay.
At their first salary, their current pay rate.
Up to like to drop back down, but not more. Right?
It would drop their bank back down. And they can only do that, I think, twice a year.
I was gonna say that becomes a challenge too.
But in that policy, they actually had a narration about how they felt this was an advantage to the city because it encouraged officers not to use sick time. So that's how in that particular jurisdiction, sick time usage was an issue. So that was how they were addressing it by giving this incentive, don't use time if you get your gas paid out. So that was their community's concern. But there are policies out there that deal with these triggers or how to get out of there.
And there's one thing that just popped in my head though too, like if say chief is off and remember and like lieutenant's filling this position, we have an offset, right? So
in our current policy, we have that, like if chief had to be off for more than 30 days or any supervisor, and you step up into that role, you get a $2 per hour increase. And that goes backdated from day one. So if either another supervisor were gone, they would take that additional money to essentially kind of act in their role, take over what they're doing job. But that is in the policy limited to like a move up, but our position we're not moving up, we're not changing, we're just taking
No, that's
down.
really
I think it's really
Yeah. But I mean, I guess we could look at that too. I don't know. We can look at it and I can bring something
Yeah.
to the council and.
I can attest to the fact they're over. Plus,
Yeah, they're up.
Should not be a loose.
No.
Should not be a loose.
Friday, they could be losing their stuff, but that's not, that's not, when, just for being game show. Cool. That work, you guys come up with an idea or something.
Yeah. We appreciate the consideration. We certainly are not trying to be complainers, we're doing the jobs, we just.
Mm.
I'll be fair too.
We want to be fair to you.
Come on.
I have something that I want to ask about, so this is Michelle, I'm ready now, I'm sure we're going. I know that there's something about the delay. I'm not even sure this is right.
What are you talking about?
Michelle, I'm ready for
I thought it was a stamp, right?
for dad was Anderson. And then he's got medical issues, he needs to get to the doctor quietly. They need a wheelchair ramp going. But the benefits of lady for whatever reason. Evidently, man is going to build the ramp. We're gonna work with the Department of Insurance. But there's some policies that need to be addressed. ADA policies, I think, they not the part better about that.
Yes, so we've received an application for a ADA ramp to be placed at the Sanderson's home from Habitat, who is funding they have grant funding, they try to help out people all over the county, not just Blissfield. So they had submitted the application. No building permit is required because of it's not attached to the home and some other things, but the zoning is. So we looked at our ordinances that requires a 20-foot setback, and we have no exceptions to that at all. So they would have to get a variance because they're encroaching that 20-foot setback in order to put this ADA ramp. So we're obviously working on our ordinances. So we went to Giffords Webster and said, because we feel really icky about this. We're like, this is an ADA ramp, this people need it. So we went to Giffords Webster and said, hey, you see new communities do exceptions for this. We want to do an exception into the setback requirement for ADA ramps. So we're getting it changed so that in the future, in the new ordinance, we won't have this issue. We'll be able to permit an ADA ramp. They can approach the setback because obviously they're putting it in for a reason. In the meantime, our current ordinance says no. So they have to get a variance. A variance is statutorily regulated, and statutorily we have to provide 15-day notice to everybody within 300 feet, and we have to provide a 15-day notice for the public hearing. The absolute fastest we can get that publication in was this Wednesday. It's scheduled to go, which means the absolute fastest meeting we can get this to is March 9th. So this Board of Adjustments, which is you guys, will look at this variance application prior to the council meeting. So this is one of those situations. It sucks. We feel terrible. We disagree with it. We're changing it because of this situation, but our hands are tied legally because we have to meet these requirements. And again, we're changing our ordinance and our rules. So this doesn't happen again. I feel terrible that it's happening to the Sandersons, but that's kind of the boat we're in. So Michelle, since her parents, we obviously like, again, we feel bad. None of us like it at the office. This does not feel good for us. We don't like it at all, but so that's kind of what we're juggling. So you guys at the last meeting did approve a waiver for Habitat. So we are not charging the zoning fee and the, for the permit or the variance fee to them so that they can use that money to build the ramp and hopefully other ramps in the community as well. But that's kind of the situation that's going on.
Is it 20 feet or 30 feet? 30.
Or
It's 30, but it could protrude 10, right? 10.
for the it's 20 feet for like, it's 30 foot for your house. And then you can
Right.
encroach into it 10 feet, so it's basically a 20 foot setback at that point.
Question was posed to me, what if they just went ahead and put the ramp in? What kind of, we find them or what repercussion would there be if they just put it in? That was posed to me. That was a question I think, but since Habitat's gonna do it, is Habitat gonna do that?
So in a normal situation, we're complaint driven, so
I'm saying.
unless we got a complaint, we're not gonna go out and actively enforce it. Now, we're still gonna proceed with the application. I think probably the variance will be granted. Obviously, I can't guarantee that, and I could be wrong, but if you look at the requirements of a variance, I think it clearly meets that, but
But the ramp going to the 20 feet or the 30, like the 10?
it
Or beyond the
goes
10.
beyond the 10.
Or what if I had a porch that's 10 feet and then I have stairs over it? Is that technically violating that order? Yes,
Yes,
they're not even, so I think not a permanent part of the structure.
that is our zoning ordinance is written right now. Yeah, we're changing this because we agree that it does not make sense, but
Thank you.
I don't like
I don't like.
Another
this
question.
situation at all.
But I also don't like being quote threatened with legal action, but it is what it is.
Well,
We're not trying to solve the situation. We certainly want to be.
That's pretty heart wrenching when you read it,
Yes.
you understand. I get it.
No,
It's
got
not
it.
fair, we are. But if we say, all right, you have to wait. How long has it been? What is the time frame or what is driven for all of a sudden we gotta have this grant? Okay, did we know 6 months ago we needed to have? That's my question.
Yes, they
We
have,
may not be able to answer that.
my understanding is that they have needed it for a while. I think it goes back to funding, so. And I don't remember if Justin talked to you guys about this at council or if it was just in my conversation with him before the council meeting, but. He did talk, it might have been before, but he had told me that Habitat for Humanity is doing less and less ramps every year because they're paying more and more in fees. So any fees that they can get waived or reduced then helps them do more projects. So they had funding in a cycle, Habitat did as many as they could. The Sandersons were not one of them, got new grant funding. The Sandersons were on a wait list and got kind of moved up with that new funding. So that's kind of my understanding of how it's worked.
So are they next in line? That's why all of a sudden,
They're-
okay, now.
Yes, their grant funding has now been approved for this project.
Because I don't have a provision for like an emergency contingency of this.
That's
To
what-
grant
that's
the emergency
what-
variance.
Well, she said it's not just working.
Right, so variances are heavily statutorily regulated by themselves, and there's
Should
not.
should we look at taking ramps, handicap ramps out of having any restrictions other than there needs to be within your property
That's what
line?
we're doing.
Okay.
Yes, that is what the new ordinance, we've already talked to Giffords Webster before we even got the variance application, because we're like, we feel terrible that we're telling these people they can't put this ADA ramp what they need. So we have to change something. So yes, we're doing that in the future. They won't even need a variance. It'll already be spelled out in the ordinance if they
So,
do that.
Let me ask this, because we're doing that already, do we not somehow issue an okay to go ahead with it?
So ordinances don't go into effect until publication.
I knew that, I just was.
So we indicated that, Joe, right?
Yes, we did let her know that. We talked to Mr. Sanderson as well. I understand why she's frustrated. I'm not.
Have you looked at the Fair Housing Act? Just looking here, and it says Fair Housing Act says a person with a disability has the right to make reasonable modification, such as installing a wheelchair ramp. A city, township, or HOA cannot use zoning or building codes to effectively deny a necessary accommodation, but for show a legitimate safety reason. That's in the Fair Housing Act.
I would take a look at that. As well, but.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And we can just bypass all of our stuff and say, this is
Yeah,
what you can
we
do.
have to rewrite.
Well, we will
Right.
rewrite. I think we ought to rewrite it, but we don't have to run through our.
That supersedes it, why? Right, then you're not.
Well, because at least real people have it addressed. I mean, unless we just want to say we're gonna adopt the Fair Housing Act.
Yeah, right.
Then what does that
There you
mean?
go.
Then now we've got,
It says local governments can enforce setback requirements, so they may need to grant variances. So again, it sounds like they don't pass independence.
That's
read what we want to read.
I think they have to, I'll double check it, but I think they have to have a variance the way it's set out.
Would it take them longer to get the variance or to get the citation for non-compliance?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like it's been sitting on our table.
Oh, correct.
So they could understand that, fortunately.
That's.
We seriously, staff feels terrible.
All right,
This is where life bumps us into our ordinances, and we need to be able to adjust accordingly and on the fly. As quickly as possible to grant these kinds of things.
So if you look into that, you say, yeah, that's true, what Chief has said, you tell them, and it just goes on. Well, it must be true. On the internet. Excellent. But you'll let us know what you find out.
Yes, absolutely,
Let's say you find out, yes, we can go through with it, you let them know and the rest will know that.
yes.
Yeah, appreciate that. Any questions for Brian? Well, if you're here, I don't know if anybody got to read the emails, but. Ron's here. Well, Danielle's gonna try to read through and bring a reputation Monday, so hopefully we could. Yeah.
I had from Michelle, it says right here, urgent request, and I just took a class. And if I was yes, and it says, it text me says urgent, ditch it, so I ditched it. Yes, but now I pulled out the garbage and I'm reading it, so I apologize, Michelle, yes.
Nothing else?
No,
All right. Okay.